Motion, this House supports a world where all jobs are paid equally. I call upon the Prime Minister to start the debate.
May I begin? So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, we would like to prove to you upon why guaranteeing this happiness of the individuals is so crucial in today's society, and why guaranteeing this equality through means of providing that equal wage to every individual based on every job is so crucial in today's debate. Okay, so Mr. and Madam Speaker, before moving into my two arguments, I'd like to clarify some of the parameters of this debate. So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, we'd like to clarify that we're only debating under the fact that this is a value debate, right? We're not going to prove about how much we should provide to these individuals or how much we should try to distribute. Rather, we want to clarify upon whether or not we should try to promote the idea of equality amongst these jobs in the first place, Mr. and Madam Speaker. Okay, so Mr. and Madam Speaker, let me move into my first argument, which is about the value of these jobs and how we can actually guarantee that maximum level of happiness. So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, if you look at the status quo, we think that there is a label that comes with your job, right? We think that there is the social perception upon the society where they're placing off these values, placing these different values upon each individual job, right? But we think that this social perception itself should not be promoted in the society. So, no, thank you, sir. We think that if you look at the purpose of these jobs, it's rather to be able to contribute to the society, and we don't think that this amount of contribution is actually different, as we think that this contribution itself is equal, right? Why? We think that if you look at the society, we think that if there is no job in the first place, this means that the society cannot function. What does this mean? So if you look at the example of hospitals, Mr. and Madam Speaker, we think that in these hospitals, it's extremely crucial to be able to have very sanitary conditions, right? But under the circumstances that we do not have these janitors or these people who are cleaning the hospital in the first place, we think that this is actually when these doctors are not really going to be able to perform their jobs at a very well level, right? This is exactly because these jobs are actually correlated to each other and they're dependent upon each other, which is exactly the reason why we think that there's no reason why they should say that, oh, this contribution itself is so important, because we think that this idea of contribution is equal, Mr. and Madam Speaker. So then how can we achieve better individual happiness, right? We think that once the payment for every job is considered equal, we think that this is the moment where that social perception disappears, right? We think that in the status quo, as the social perception and the value of your job is dependent on your salary, when this disappears, we think that this is actually when you're going to be able to guarantee that maximum level of happiness. So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, because the idea of happiness itself is subjective, we think that in the status quo, the society is actually dictating upon like what job I should do and what job I should get in order to feel this happiness itself, right? But Mr. and Madam Speaker, we think that once the social perception is able to disappear, we think that there's going to be no pressure for me to choose a certain job over other jobs simply because of the fact that I get to choose the job that I like, because the social perception of having a higher wage is not going to exist in the status quo. So why is this important? We think that the amount of happiness in the status quo is actually dictating my quality of life, right? So the moment I get to choose what kind of job I will be able to fulfill that enjoyment, this is actually when I'm going to receive a better increased quality of life, which is really what we want to promote in today's debate. So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, let me move into my second argument about why this is not really promoting the idea of meritocracy in the first place. So, in the status quo, we'd like to clarify that the society is based on birth lottery, right? The moment I'm born into a poor family, that means I'm going to start at a poor status. But when we compare this to other people who are born from a rich family, this is the moment where I'm going to be rich, right? But no matter how I try hard, consider that I'm a poor being, this means that no matter how I try hard, the result is still going to be different from one who comes from a rich family, right? So we think that because we proved to you that this birth lottery exists, this is actually the moment where in the status quo, it's still not representing the idea of meritocracy itself. So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, because we think that this birth lottery exists and because it's not really going to promote the idea of meritocracy in the first place, we think that this is going to be able to create a vicious cycle where people are not being profited simply based on the amount of happiness I'm guaranteed or based on whatever pursuits I want to receive in the status quo. We think that this is actually where these individuals these individuals' success is always going to be dependent upon their social status, right? And therefore, because we think that this is going to happen, and where people put these social perceptions upon each job and put this value upon these jobs, we think that this is actually the moment where it creates the vicious cycle where people are not going to be able to do the things they actually like to do and also not really even promote the idea of meritocracy in the first place. So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, because we proved to you that this is such an important matter, as this is going to be able to guarantee the value of your job and allow you to choose what job is actually going to be the most beneficial towards myself and how I'm going to be able to improve my quality of life through having a job that can actually guarantee me with the maximum quality of maximum happiness. We think that once this social perception is able to disappear, we think that this is actually the moment I'm going to be able to guarantee the most and maximum happiness that I can achieve in my life. And because we've also proved to you that this idea of meritocracy itself does not even exist in the status quo, we don't see any reason why we need to actually prevent this motion from being passed, especially as we simply want to promote a society where we're going to be able to provide the most equality to these individuals. So therefore, this is the reason why I'm very proud to propose. Thank you.
Prime Minister for his speech. Now to respond, I'd like to invite the Leader of Opposition.
So, Mr. and Madam Speaker, we tell you that the proposition is living under a utopianistic society. We tell you that it's not that suddenly we give every single person equal money. It's not that it's going to be only happy. We tell that there's going to be extreme aftermath for that very process because now these people will lose motivation. There's no reason for these people to work hard to achieve high social status, which is the reason why our society can actually function in the end of the day. So, as the Leader of Opposition, I'm going to talk about two things. First, about the meritocracy and the value of it, and second, why the society cannot function in the end of the day. Before I go on to my arguments, I'd like to briefly tackle what the previous speaker talked about. First, she talked about the value of jobs, about the label, and the social perception. We have two layers of responses. First, we tell you that it's needed social evil, Mr. Speaker, because yes, all jobs are important, but we tell that the inherent value that one job actually has is different because there's a different supply and demand. For instance, in this hospital where there's missing one janitor, that doesn't kill anybody. But if there's one talented doctor is actually missing in the hospital, we tell you that many lives are going to be sacrificed. We tell you that yes, all service is important, but the value that the service holds is actually different. But second, we tell you that if the discrimination is such a big problem, yes, we will try to solve discrimination under our side as well. For example, we'll do campaigns, we'll do educations that can see that all service is important in our society. We think that education can also be laid out under our side. But they also talked about how happiness is subjective. But we tell you that it's actually needed evil, Mr. Speaker. We tell you that it's reward of your work, reward of your service, and if you actually receive no, thank you, ma'am. We believe that if you actually receive the reward of your work, it's actually going to do what the supply and demand that the society actually requires of. But second, we tell you, I'm going to prove in my second argument about how the basic services are not going to be done. We rather happen when we actually draw a comparative. Rather, we believe that our side actually just creates more unhappiness. But they also talked about the birth lottery, right? But also two levels of responses. First, let's say there's a poor family and two kids, one worked hard, one doesn't work hard. Our side is a place where we actually present and compliment the one who worked hard by giving them more money, right? Because we tell you that we value the work that the person who worked hard did. That such a presentation can never happen under their side. But second, again, then solve the discrimination, right? Then subsidize the poor, give more opportunities to the poor, we don't think that that can actually is actually mutually exclusive in the first place. Now let me go on to my first argument about the meritocracy. So first, what is the concept of meritocracy? It is that we want to certificate those who work hard to go through a lot of endurance and giving them matching compliments. And that is why we value the work of people. That is why we actually want to compliment these people for their services. However, as I actually analyze for you, we tell you that yes, all jobs do have equal inherent values, but the supply and demand that society actually gives actually displays different value on different services. Because some services are more accessible and more easy to do compared to other jobs. For example, doctors, they're well paid. The reason why is because we value the service of saving lives of people and in the first place, because some services do have different values in their service in the first place. Also, because different services do have different values. Also, among the same workers, there's people who work more hard, and there's people who actually put comparably less work than other people. We think that kind of work. No, thank you, ma'am. It's also a service under our side, because now we tell you that because you did a lot of work, we will present you with the matching amounts of compliment, which is monetary compensation. That is why under their side, Mr. Madam Speaker, we tell you that co-workers and CEOs are going to be actually giving the same amounts of money. The president and the janitor is going to get the same amounts of money, despite the amount of endurance that these individuals actually went through and how much sacrifice they actually did in order to provide good service for their citizens, good service to their customers or whatnot, is actually inherently different from the get-go. We tell you that they actually did different amounts of work, they actually did different amounts of sacrifices and different amounts of endurance. That's why we tell you it's immoral to simply look down on these individuals' work, to simply not actually remember what kind of sacrifices these individuals do. We want to actually actively compliment. We say that we want to actually say and actively compliment these individuals for giving a good job to actually give a lot of sacrifices. But second, about how the society cannot function, two layers of analysis. First, we tell that high-paying jobs actually need a lot of work, a lot of sacrifices. Yes, motivation, and that is actually motivation is actually money and monetary compensation. Because the reason why we actually do self-development, the reason why we study is because we want to make our service valuable. For example, doctors, they study for 8 years, they become an intern, they become a fellow, they go to many types of procedures in order to become a good doctor. And the reason why they actually study, the reason why they don't sleep and actually study off, the reason why they go through all of the hardships as a doctor, the reason why they endure the guilt that I can kill a person is because that kind of values are neutralized by monetary compensation, Mr. and Madam Speaker. It's equal for professors, it's equal for lawyers, presidents and politicians, and all these top-tier white-collar jobs, because without professors, we cannot do researches, we cannot do innovative researches. Without lawyers, we cannot make justice, we can't make these justice or judicial system agenda. Without presidents or politicians, we cannot actually adequately reflect the opinion of these people and actually adequately reflect the policies and the ideas of these people. We tell that without these people, without the motivation that is given by monetary compensation, if you work hard, if we will give you a lot of money, without that compensation, who would be a CEO when they actually could get when they could be a co-worker and actually get the equal amount of money? We tell that kind of service can never happen under their side. But going on to my second layer of analysis, we tell that there's not going to be startups in the first place, right? Because when they're equally paying, CEO is much more stressful compared to co-workers. Therefore, ordinary people simply choose to become co-workers of big companies or whatnot. And that's why, for example, even if I make a new company, for example, if I was to make a hospital, the place that I will make a hospital is maybe in cities, right? And there's going to be only these hospitals in only these neutralized cities, and only few companies will actually monopolize the whole service area, meaning that there's going to be no startups, no innovations that can actually develop under our society. Also, there's going to be no compensation, and places without those kind of hospitals, like rural areas without hospitals, cannot actually access to these companies and access to service that these hospitals provide us. That is why I'm very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella, for your speech. Now I'd like to invite DP and to the
Can I start? Mr. Madam Speaker, one characterization that side opposition is losing in today's debate is that they never proved us why monetary value is going to be so crucial for that person to feel as much as burden that they want to save a person in the concept of doctor. Mr. Madam Speaker, if my dream is to save more people, Mr. Madam Speaker, that's the moment when I'm going to feel more burden that I should save that person, that I should give a clear
sacrifice for the society, and I have the will to sacrifice for the society. We believe that monetary value, which is prioritized in today's society, and underside opposition, that can never be actually an achievement of how we have more motivation to sacrifice for the society, Mr. Madam Speaker. And that's the moment when side opposition fails in today's debate to prove us why that's going to be able to achieve as much as motivation that we can prefer underside government. We believe that the development of the society and the functioning of the society itself is going to be way more effective underside government. And we'd like to prove you why it's actually more crucial underside government in our last argumentation. So having the said, Mr. Madam Speaker, we'd like to prove you why we take this debate to no. Thank you, sir. So first, Mr. Madam Speaker, about meritocracy that side opposition so loves in today's debate. We don't know why meritocracy is so important under their case when meritocracy is not actually fulfilled under their side of opposition. Mr. Madam Speaker, if I'm a poor and if there's a rich person, despite the fact that we're going to work as hard, like we're going to give effort as same as other people are doing, if a rich person gains like 100% of effort and a poor person actually shows 100% of effort, Mr. Madam Speaker, the result is different. The consequence that happens in the status quo is clearly different, Mr. Madam Speaker. We believe that at the first place, the starting line is different for these poor people and the rich people, and what we should solve in today's debate is to decrease the gap between the rich and poor from the get-go. And our first speaker, we clearly proved you about how the gap between rich and poor is going to decrease. We'd like to clarify it once more. For example, Mr. Madam Speaker, if I'm a rich person, I have more opportunity to become and achieve the white-collar job in the status quo, meaning that I'm going to gain more income compared to those poor people who are going to have a natural vicious cycle and is actually forced in the status quo to gain and to choose a blue-collar job in order for me to survive. Mr. Madam Speaker, we clearly see how a white-collar job income and a blue-collar job income differs. And we clearly see how rich people have more opportunity to become a white-collar job worker and poor people gain more opportunity to become a blue-collar job worker. Meaning that since the income from the get-go in the status quo clearly differs, and that's the reason why the gap between rich and poor can never decrease under side opposition. Despite the fact that they talk about how they're going to give them welfare, more welfare, Mr. Madam Speaker, we believe that that's not enough. What we crucially need is a rapid decrease between the gap between the rich and poor, because the vicious cycle has not increased for a long time. We find this problematic. But furthermore, Mr. Madam Speaker, they talked about these values due to the monetary compensation. We clearly proved you from the beginning of the debate, we believe that monetary compensation itself is not effective, and we don't want to value monetary compensation over the values of individual. We want to give the best happiness and the best quality of life for our citizens as a responsible government, and we believe that that's only achieved under side government who can actually give the opportunity and the chance for our citizens to choose what they want to do really. Mr. Madam Speaker, if I'm a poor person, I actually have more opportunity and I am forced by the society to choose a doctor over an idol even if I really want to become an idol, right? Because there's a high possibility for me to fail and there's a high possibility for me to gain more profit due to the doctor. However, when the profit itself is going to be exactly the same, we believe that that's the moment when I'm able to achieve the value that I want to achieve from the get-go. We'd like to further elaborate in our last argumentation. And moreover, they talked about how there's going to be people who are there's going to be no difference between people who are working hard and who are not working hard. Mr. Madam Speaker, we believe that these all people under our side are going to work hard. Why? Because they are achieving their own value. But even if there's going to be people who are not working hard, then they're going to get fired by the society. And that's the reason why they clearly have a motivation. But furthermore, Mr. Madam Speaker, we clearly see a policy in the company itself. They give bonus to those workers who are working very hard. And that's the reason why, under their case, if they actually value monetary compensation so much, it's not mutually exclusive under our case, because actually from the get-go inside the corporation, they're going to also gain benefit by how much they're compensating and how much they're contributing to the company from the get-go, Mr. Speaker. And that's the reason why we believe that we take this debate. Having this said, directly going on to our last argumentation about why productivity of the individuals is going to increase under side of government. Mr. Madam Speaker, we believe that the individuals are incapable of achieving the value that they want to achieve in the status quo because of the social structure and because of the burden pushed to these poor people who are very vulnerable, that you need to gain more money from the get-go. We believe that in the status quo, they're scared of failure. They fear the fact that they're unable to get money, and they're money that they will be distributed to me is going to differ if I choose the value that I really want to achieve under my characterization and under what value I'm prioritizing in the status quo. So it's so clear that I am going to choose a doctor over an idol, even if I want to become an idol singer or not. We believe that especially for the poor, they're unable to follow their own value from the get-go. On their side government, Mr. Madam Speaker, we believe that even if I may fail by following the road of idol or whatnot, because I'm going to get compensated for the effort that I'm going to try in order to achieve the value that I really want to achieve, Mr. Madam Speaker, people are not feared of failure itself. Mr. Madam Speaker, in order for a society to develop, we need many people to opt into difficulties, and they should face the difficulties. That's the moment when there's going to be a new innovative idea coming up. That's the moment when the society is going to start development. On their side opposition, people are feared to face the difficulty from the get-go because they cannot get compensated. That's the reason why, Mr. Madam Speaker, on our side, we believe that because they're going to achieve their own value, they have more motivation, and furthermore, because we clearly proved about how people are going to be less fear in facing the difficulties, that's the moment when you take this debate home. So at the end of the day, on their side government, people are going to be more happy, the productivity is also going to increase, and we clearly proved you about how meritocracy is not fair on their side opposition. We take this debate home. Thank you.
May I start? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in today's debate, side governance rebuttals and arguments was based on one premise that monetary value and monetary compensation is actually not important in the status quo. However, we think that this is not true. The reason why people are working very hard in companies to get the bonus they talked about, the reason why people in companies are working very hard to get a promotion is because of monetary compensation and monetary value. We think that money in a capitalist society allows you to buy a lot of social privileges, and therefore, because money allows you to actually get the high social status, that's why people are working very hard, and that is why meritocracy is so important in today's society, right? However, under their case, when they're actually going to equally pay every single jobs, we think that we believe that every jobs are actually important. However, we think that there's a clear difference in these kind of job values. We believe that that's the exact reason in their side the meritocracy is not going to be fulfilled, and therefore, in their society, people will rather not work hard. Now, the first argument, value of jobs. They said in this kind of job, every contribution is equal, so therefore, the value of jobs should actually be same, and therefore, the payment should be same. We agree upon the fact that every job is important. However, we disagree upon the fact when they said that every value of jobs were actually same. We think that when it comes to jobs, for example, when they said that if there's one less janitor in this kind of hospitals, then the hospital is not going to work. We think that this is realistically wrong. Just because there is one less person cleaning the bathroom in the hospital does not mean that more people are going to die. However, if there is one talented doctor in the hospitals, it means that many people has the potential of dying. We believe that the reason why people are becoming doctors is, yes, there are some doctors that really want to save people, and that's the reason why they become doctors. However, we think that the majority of the people who became doctors is because of the social status. Because doctors are considered a very high social status in the current status quo, that's the reason why people are actually becoming doctors. And the reason why doctors are so high in the social hierarchy is because they get a lot of monetary compensation. That's the reason why monetary compensation equals social status in today's capitalist society, and because they also agreed upon the fact, we think that's the exact reason why it proves that in their side, people will be demotivated to become hardworking workers, just as doctors, right? Because doctors are a very hardworking job. You have to work more than 20 hours a day, and it's a very hard work. However, when they're going to pay these kind of convenience stores workers as same as the doctors who are actually working more than 20 hours a day, we think that this is a clear harm coming from their side, right? Because there's going to be less motivated people in the society to take these kind of hardworking jobs, such as lawyers or doctors or not. Since they fail to prove why this would not happen under their case, we think that's the reason why government loses today's debate. And second issue, why in their side they say people will not be pressured to choose jobs. However, we think that there's a lot of influence when it comes to choosing your jobs, right? We think that there might be influence of education or whatnot. And when they said that these kind of people will not become idle workers, we think that it was still these kind of people's choice, right? We think that people actually consider a lot of different circumstances, and then after people actually choose the circumstance, they choose their jobs. We believe that is exactly why, yes, we believe that social pressure is actually okay when there's already a lot of influences that is happening when it comes to people's decision. And now, when their second analysis call the birth lottery. We believe that just because I was born from a poor family does not mean I don't have to work very hard, right? Let's say there was two people that were born in poor families. One person worked very hard and the other one actually didn't work very hard. Under their side, both people are going to get the same social status and both people will be treated equally on the society. We think that this is very unfair, right? We think that the poor person who actually worked very hard should actually get a higher social status because that person actually worked hard and therefore fulfill the value of meritocracy. However, under their side, even if the birth lottery are going to exist, we think that this cannot be a problem that could be solved in today's society, right? That's the reason why even if I'm born from a poor family and even if my family is poor, you should actually still work very hard to achieve the high social status. However, because in their side, this is not going to happen. Rather, if I'm born from a poor family, people will rather likely not work very hard. So therefore, we think that in their side, the value of meritocracy is not going to be fulfilled. Now, when the last argument was about how these kind of people are not going to choose jobs that is going to fit me, we think that this directly clashes with their team's last argument, and I would like to disprove this in my team's argument, which I will do right now. And our team's last argument is why people are not going to find the jobs that is going to fit them, and therefore people will not find their true talents. So, Mr. Madam Speaker, when it comes to jobs and when it comes to the decision process, we think that the process of people finding their talents and jobs comes from studying and working hard when you are young, right? Because you are actually working hard when you are young, and during the process of working hard, you actually discover your talents. Because during the process of studying, you know what you're good and what you're bad at, and therefore that actually influences of your happiness, and that influences you choosing your happy job. However, under their side, because people are not going to work very hard in the first place, this means that people cannot know what they're good at and what they're bad at. Meaning, when it comes to choosing their jobs, people cannot know whether this job actually suits me or not. For example, when it comes to the example of professors, the reason why people choose to become professors is because they actually enjoy studying and going deeper into certain subjects. However, in their side, because people are not going to start in the first place when it comes to this kind of studying, and because people will not actually start this kind of process of becoming also very successful workers, I think that in their side, this is not going to happen. Because the reason why people are working very hard and studying very hard in the current status quo is because if you do not work hard, you get a low-paying job, and therefore you get a low social status. However, in their side, where every jobs are actually going to get paid equally, that doesn't mean that that means that I don't have to work hard, right? I could simply just live a normal life, and therefore I could get a normal job which is paid equally as everyone. This means that people do not have the motivation to actually find what they're good at and therefore develop the talent, but rather people are more likely to not study and actually not work for their future in the first place. We think that this means that there's going to be one less talented professor in the current society, and therefore we think that in their side, there's going to be a lot of talented people that's not going to happen in today's society. So, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, if you compare our two cases, we think that under their side, because the value of meritocracy is not going to be kept, people are not going to work hard. And therefore, in their side, we believe that there's going to be one less talented CEOs in the society. There's going to be one less talented doctors. And because these kind of crucial people are actually the ones that is developing the society, we think in their side, there's going to be a lot of social harms. However, because in our side, we are keeping the meritocratic value, and because in our society, because there's different paying jobs, and because jobs are paid differently, and that decides the social status and your future, people are actually working hard under our side. So unless the next speaker can prove why this is not going to happen under their side, we think that our side clearly takes this debate home. Thank you.
May I begin? Mr. and Madam Speaker, we're going to prove to you in the two clash points I found in today's debate upon why we can actually achieve the individual happiness and why we can actually make a better society at the end of the day, right? So moving directly into the two clash points I found in today's debate, firstly about the happiness of the society, and secondly about which side creates a better society. Moving directly into the first clash, which is about the happiness of the society. So Mr. and Madam Speaker, their basic logic and their basic case was entirely based upon the concept of meritocracy, right? But we have three responses to this. Number one, we say that when there's different different starting lines based on birth order. We say that there is no meritocracy existing in the status quo, right? Even if a poor person and a rich person was to work the same, we say that the consequence that these individuals get and the results they're going to get is going to be different at the end of the day, right? And therefore, no matter how hard you try in the first place, we say that the meritocratic value that they talked about is never going to be achieved under their side, where these people, they actually have different starting line, which was based because of the different wages that these individuals got in the status quo, right? And therefore, in this case, Mr. Madam Speaker, we told you that there's no meritocracy existing under their side, where even if you try hard, you do not get the same amount of actually benefit and the same amount of results. No, thank you, sir. But secondly, we say that meritocracy is still going to exist under our side, right? We say that these individuals, they need to get hired, they need to get a job. In those instances, we say that these individuals, they're still going to try hard, right? Because the moment when you start not working hard, that's the moment when you're going to be fired. That's when your job is going to be replaced at the end of the day, right? And therefore, no, thank you, sir. And therefore, when this is the case, we say that meritocracy is still going to exist under our side, and we say that individuals, they're actually going to try hard under our side, right? But thirdly, even if we accept the fact that meritocracy is not going to happen under our side, we say that we still have a better case, right? Because we guarantee the maximum happiness of the majority of the society, right? Because we say in the status quo, because of different wages, that's exactly the reason why doctors are considered as success and janitors are considered as failures, right? We say that we can solve this social perception in the first place, and we can actually guarantee more happiness to individuals, because now the standard of them getting a job is not based on what the society believes, because everyone is now getting an equal job, but what they actually really want to do in the first place and what they actually want to pursue in status quo, right? And therefore, when this is the case, we tell you that this is not important in the first place, right? But then they came up to the podium and told us about how the value of jobs are different, right? However, Mr. Madam Speaker, we say that the opposition does not understand the fact that there are different standards when it comes down, and there's not a single standard of determining what the value of jobs is, right? We say that it is up to interpretation. We say that they cannot determine what job is more important than the other when they contribute to society in the same manner in the first place, right? And therefore, when this is the case, Mr. Madam Speaker, we clearly proved to you how the value of jobs is not actually different in the first place, right? But then they came up to the podium and told us about how working hard is the basis of you finding a job, and therefore, when you actually get education, that's the moment when you can actually find your job in the first place, right? However, Mr. Madam Speaker, we tell you that the mechanism of studying and going through different experiences is still going to exist under our side, right? People, they still go through different experiences. They still get education. They still go to these different environments. In those instances, we say that those people are able to find their jobs, but we say what's different from their side is that these people, they can actually do the jobs that they really want to do instead of the jobs that the society believes and society actually forces these individuals to do, right? And therefore, when this is the case, Mr. Madam Speaker, when you tell you that subjective is so, that the happiness, the standard of happiness is so subjective, and when we tell you that the society forcing certain values is not actually important, is not actually a good thing in the first place, and when we tell you that how much happiness you get in the status quo is the standard of how good you lived your life, we tell you that when this is the case, guaranteeing basic happiness of the individuals is very, very important, and we say that can only happen under our side, where the social perception itself is going to change at the end of the day, right? But moving into the second class, which is about which side will be able to create a better society. So, Mr. Madam Speaker, we told you about how under their side, people don't want to get these blue-collar jobs because the moment they do, they're going to be considered as failures, right? Because they cannot actually get the money that is necessary. We told you about how when this is the case, they can there will be less individuals who want to be blue-collar jobs, and we told you about how this is so critical because you need these electricity to actually operate. You need electricity to actually perform surgeries. We say without such blue-collar jobs, we say such white-collar jobs, they cannot do the jobs in the first place, and therefore we told you about how this is how blue-collar jobs are equally important when it comes down to saving these patients, or equally important when it comes down to like these white-collar jobs, right? But then they came up to the podium and told us about these individuals, they do not have motivation to work hard, right? But we have two responses, right? Number one, we say that motivation will exist under our side because these individuals, they can do what they really want to do, right? They can, for example, they can be artists, they can be musicians, which we believe they can never do under their side, where these jobs are considered failure because they earn less money compared to these doctors in the first place. Therefore, when they actually do what they really want to do, we say they're going to feel motivation because they're doing what they want to do. They're following their values. We say when this is the case, we say that they're still going to work hard and have motivation under our side, right? But secondly, we say that if you don't work hard, you're going to be fired and you're not going to be able to earn the money in the first place because you're going to be replaced by another person. You're going to be fired and you're not going to get the equal amount of money in the first place. We tell you that when this is the case, these individuals, they still have an incentive to try hard to actually not be fired from their companies, not be fired of their jobs. And therefore, in this the case, we told you about how motivation is actually going to exist in the first place, right? But also, when we told you about how the gap between the rich and the poor will actually reduce, and how this is actually beneficial for not only the poor people but also the rich people, because it actually because the moment when the society becomes better and when there's less poor people, that's the moment when the government doesn't have to spend money upon these poor people, and they can actually focus more on the society's entire benefits at the end of the day, right? And therefore, in this case, Mr. Madam Speaker, we clearly tell you that we can actually create a better society because we can reduce this gap between the rich and the poor in the first place, right? And therefore, in this the case, Mr. Madam Speaker, we take this debate home for two reasons, right? Firstly, we prove to you the happiness of the individuals and why that's so important and why that can only be achieved under our side. And secondly, we told you about how we can actually create a better society for these individuals to live in. And therefore, for these reasons, we're more than happy to propose. Thank you.
May I start? So, ladies and gentlemen, this debate is ultimately upon which value and which ideology is important between capitalism and communism. And we told you why communist society can also fail because of the lack of motivation. We said that inside a communist society, when people are all paid the same amount of money, people lose motivation. They lose motivation to develop themselves. And that is the point when doctors vanish. That is the point when important jobs vanish. We are not saying that things like janitors are not important. We say that all jobs are important. But what is important is that the value of jobs is different because of the supply and demand in the society. When we actually give money for a certain kind of service, the reason why we give money, a certain amount of money, is because we actually buy that kind of service. And when that service is different from jobs, we say that the amount of money that you receive should be different from people by people. That's a clear reason why we're winning in today's debate. There are two main questions. First question, about which side's actually ideology is much better and which is much more realistic. And second question, about the individual happiness in today's society. So the first question, what is a better value? No, thank you. So they told us that they conceded upon the point that a value that I actually go for and the value I go for in order to choosing a job can be different from people by people. And we already told you my monetary value is not a bad thing. When I actually go for a monetary value, it's not a bad thing because money itself is not a bad thing, because money is what I pay for a certain kind of a service. If I pay money to a doctor, I actually give money for the medical service. So actually going for a monetary value is never a bad thing. And we also told you why the most meaning of when we actually define successful people, we define them in most of the cases upon money. So if I want to be successful because of the money that I receive, we do not think that is a bad thing. And also, if I actually work hard and I try to give that money to my sons and daughters, why do you think that this is also a bad thing? Because when I'm actually going for a monetary value, I am going for that because I want to give that money to my sons and daughters. And this is never something that should be criticized in today's debate. No, thank you. So upon the case of all jobs are equal, I already clarified why all jobs are important, but the values of services are also different. And under a capitalistic society, a person should receive different money because they actually give different values and different services. No, thank you. So upon the point of contribution to the society, we say that when we compare janitors and doctors, just actually one janitor actually disappearing does not actually kill people, but one disappearance of valuable doctors actually give a huge impact to the society as well. So that actually tells you why some kind of value of jobs and value of services differ from people by people. And second of all, the second criteria upon the contribution to the society and the value of services is also about the substitution. If you can actually substitute janitor another janitor easily, you cannot actually substitute a doctor to another doctor because you need 8 years of training in the society. If you need 8 years of training, it's much more harder to actually find an alternative doctor. We say that that is actually concluding to a point that all jobs are different. The values of jobs are different in today's society. So when they tell us about the efficiency in today's debate, we have two responses. First of all, do you really doubt the ability of doctors who became doctors because of their monetary value? If I became a doctor because I like money, it does not mean that I'm I'm a bad doctor. I also do my duty because that is my job. It does not mean that I became a doctor because of money. It does not mean that I'm not doing my duty. So you do not have to doubt about the doctor's ability and the doctor's efficiency in today's society. So when we compare the proposition and opposition, in the proposition side's case, the doctors are not motivated. So when I become a doctor before because of money, I do not become a doctor now because I'm receiving the same money as another job. So that's a clear reason why there will be less doctors in the society, and when there's less doctors, there will be very like social chaos because many people would die. Many people cannot go to their doctors and save their life. So we say that is a clear happening, which the opposition hates in today's debate. So when we come to a question about what is a better value in today's society, what we're actually important, what we think is crucial, is the motivation and the practical sides of capitalism, and they're not actually rebutting to anything upon that in today's debate. So on to our second question about the individual happiness. They told us about quality of lives are important. They just actually told us that the quality of lives are upon the payment of individuals. And we say that people who have less payment in today's society are also happy. There are people who actually receive less payment. There are also people who are actually actually have a lot of happy life. So quality of life is not only upon money in today's society. So we rebutted upon the point that the quality of life is upon the payment. And second of all, if the quality of life is really upon the payment in today's debate, if you give all the people, all the jobs the same amount of money, do you think that the quality of life would be better for some people? If I became a doctor because of money but I received less payment, or the same payment with other jobs, I'll be less happy, and my quality of life will be lower because the reason why I became a doctor is because of money, but I received less money or I received the same amount of money. And that's a clear problem that we say in today's debate. And upon the birth lottery that they like so much in today's, we have three responses. First of all, we already responded to that point, that if you actually break the social structure, and if the government actually breaks the social structure, are you actually willing to give a different amount of money to all the jobs? And we say that was a question upon the proposition. And second of all, then all the rich people in today's society, or every rich people happy in today's debate. If the money and if birth lottery was so important, all the rich people should be happy, but I don't see that in the current society. And third of all, upon the doctors, we say that there are also doctors who are from poor background. And we say that in these cases, it actually proves that meritocracy is more important than the social background that you have. So in these cases, we say that your meritocracy is important, and meritocracy is a very important value. And without meritocracy, there's so much social chaos upon the motivation itself. And that's the reason why I believe that the proposition fails in today's debate. About their last argument about when they actually go for their value, when I want to be an idol, but I can't because of money, we say that if it was the monetary value that actually stopped you from your dream, and I actually chose another dream, that is a certain choice of an individual. If I get affected by another actually factor, that is not a bad thing, because every choice is upon influence, every choice is upon other factors that is influenced by you. And upon the happiness, we told you in our third argument why in order to find your talent at the end of the day, what is important is to actually try and go for experience and actually go and trial and error. So for trial and error, we say that our side wins. Thank you.
Can I start? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, because the last minute of my deputy speech was not actually expressed very clearly, I'd like to give clear two reasons why side opposition took this debate home. The first reason is about the motivation, right? We think that both sides have to prove why in our society, each society, these kind of people are going to be motivated to work hard. When both sides agreed upon the fact that monetary compensation is one of the biggest reasons why people are working hard in the society, this proves that people are only going to work hard under our society, right? Because we're the society that is going to put certain values in each jobs. We actually think that certain jobs' value is all different, and by that criteria, we're actually giving salary, right? Jobs that have more values are given more salary, while comparably, jobs that has less value are given less salary. That is why people are very motivated to work hard in the society to get the high-paying job, which means that they're going to get the high social status in the current society. And we think that to get the high social status is the reason why people are motivated, and that's the reason why people are working hard in today's society. However, on the other side, we think that this is actually not true, right? When people still want to actually get this kind of monetary compensation, compensation. However, when all jobs are going to pay you equally, this means that obviously people will choose the easier choice, right? People are not going to work very hard to become lawyers, unlike the status quo, but rather, when people becoming lawyers and people becoming convenience store workers, when they're actually paid equally, what will people choose? People will obviously choose the easier way to earn the equal amount of money. That is actually not studying for 8 years, but rather just working in a convenience store, right? We believe that in the concept of meritocracy, we should actually reward people who actually worked harder. We should actually reward people who actually tried more hard in the society. However, on their side, because they're actually rewarding every people same, not considering the hard work of the people, we think that rather people will not be motivated to work hard. And the second issue about individual happiness, right? We think that our last argument clearly proved to you why individual happiness can be only achieved under our side, right? For example, let's say when it comes to professors, right? They actually value this kind of honor and their expertise over the monetary value. And the reason why they do this is because they actually had the process of studying and they actually discovered that studying is actually right for them. However, in their case, this is not going to happen because people from young age do not have to prepare for the society. Right? Rather, on their side, Mr. and Madam Speakers, people are not going to go into these kind of processes, and therefore, people who could have been very successful professors, who could have found their happiness by actually teaching other people and studying more in their actually lives, this cannot be achieved on their side, and therefore we think that in their side there is going to harm the individual happiness more, because the process of actually discovering what you're good at and what you're happy at is actually the process when you are young and when you're actually preparing for the society. So Mr. and Madam Speakers, at the end of the day, if I draw you a comparison, we think that on-site government, because people are not going to be motivated to actually do hard-working jobs that is very important in today's society, for example, doctors and lawyers, when people could actually get the same social status as doctors and lawyers by just simply working in factories or convenience stores or whatnot. And when the social status is decided by monetary compensation in a capitalist society, however, on their side, because the monetary compensation and the social status is going to be same for every single person, this means that people are not going to be motivated. And because when people are going to find their happiness, in our case, because people need the process of studying to actually discover what they're good at, we think that these two clashes come to our side, and that's a clear reason why side opposition took this debate home. Thank you.
Mr. Madam Speaker, one clear problem coming from side opposition is that they're generalizing all lawyers and all doctors who only prioritize the monetary value, Mr. Madam Speaker. They talked about how people are not going to choose lawyers and doctors because you need to give effort, Mr. Madam Speaker. We believe that when you clearly proved you under our whole case of how people are going to prioritize their own value, and that's the reason why they're going to follow their dreams, Mr. Madam Speaker. We believe that when their whole contextualization was generalizing all workers upon the monetary value, Mr. Madam Speaker, they fail in today's debate. And having that said, I would like to clearly prove you why side government takes this debate home. Mr. Madam Speaker, first problem coming from side opposition was that they're prioritizing individuals' happiness over a fake meritocracy. We told you why meritocracy under side opposition is not true, because the starting line itself is different. Even if I try so hard, the consequence the result that happens at the end of the day is different with those who are rich, Mr. Madam Speaker. We clearly prove you why this is such a fake meritocracy and no engagement came from side opposition, Mr. Madam Speaker. And furthermore, what was very problematic on their side opposition was that their third speaker came up to the podium and talked about all rich are not happy. And that's the reason why, Mr. Madam Speaker, we find monetary value becoming the priority problematic. We want our citizens to be happy. We want our citizens to prioritize their own value and live a happy life, a high quality life at the end of the day. Mr. Madam Speaker, when they talk about how rich are not all happy in the status quo, that's the clear reason why, Mr. Madam Speaker, we should not prioritize monetary value over happiness and over the individual's value. But furthermore, we believe that the status quo, the social pressures that the status quo is giving, is same as giving a standardized value which is over another value, Mr. Madam Speaker. We believe that individuals has the capability to compare the value. Individuals should have the right to compare the value which is more beneficial, which I want to prioritize at the end of the day. We believe that side opposition is just giving a standard of what value should be prioritized over another, and we find that problematic, Mr. Madam Speaker. We believe that we want to respect the individual's choice from the get-go, and side opposition is miserably failing in today's debate. But furthermore, about the Furthermore, they talked about the supply and demand or like whatnot. We believe that, Mr. Madam Speaker, upon the supply and demand, why do we have so many like people who want to become doctor? Because of the monetary compensation. At the moment, when the monetary compensation is going to disappear and all people are going to get the equal amount of money, that's the moment when there's going to be the diversity of like jobs existing in the status quo. And that's the reason why the supply and demand that they characterize is naturally going to decrease and is going to vanish at the end of the day. Mr. Madam Speaker, it clearly proved you why side government achieved the happiness of the individuals even more, and also when side opposition admit the fact that all rich are not happy, that's the moment we believe the side government achieves a happiness, which is the most important factor in today's debate, because we prioritize a higher quality of higher quality of life for our citizens, Mr. Madam Speaker. And Mr. Madam Speaker, because we clearly proved you about the exclusive benefit only under side government, we believe the side government should be the one and are the one who are prioritizing the individual's value and individual's happiness. We take this debate to home. Thank you.
야, 진짜 물을 누가? 다 마셨냐?